Being a product of the South, this moment is somewhere between Friday night revival and Sunday morning worship. I am indeed delighted to be here, and to President Luter and to the Southeast Ministerial Alliance. Thank you so much for the invitation to share on this event. I am honored to be here. And to my brother, colleague, mentor, friend, and I'm tempted to say father in ministry, Bishop Watts. Often when people help us, we say, at some point I'm going to pay you back. Dr. Watts has done so much for me that there is no way I can pay him back. I'm not even going to even try. I am just that much indebted to him. I don't know what age he's claiming now, but when I was 16, I was saved under his preaching. And so for that, I am delighted and entered the ministry not many days hence as a 16-year-old. And I was a 16-year-old. No, you don't feel it like I mean it. When I started preaching, I was 16 years old. No, you still don't feel it. I was really 16 years of age. I was with Jesus, but I was still 16. And I can remember Bishop praying for me so many times and getting, bless her heart, Mother Watts on the phone. And Mother Watts would say, baby, God is going to rescue you again. So I am indeed delighted to be here into this marvelous music ministry for blessing us in song, and for the other ministers and politicians who gather here today. Lady Watts, God bless you. And I know I know. And I've noticed two of my colleagues from the House of Representatives. I'm going to ask them to stand. I noticed two. I'm going to ask them to stand. Maybe there are others that ask you to stand as well. I don't know how much time has been allotted for this moment, so I'll just stay up until I'm done. And then I sit down. I don't want to be like the preacher who asked his deacons, how long have I been up? And one replied, there's a calendar on the wall. I know there are many faith traditions represented here today, but allow me to plant my foundation for these remarks. In the book of Genesis, chapter 37 and verse 9. And you will find these words from the New International Version of the Bible. Then he, Joseph, had another dream. And he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars were bowing down to me. And those words that show up. And Joseph had another dream. And that's what I want to talk about for the time allotted. And Joseph had another dream. As Bishop Watts said, I'm both preacher and politician. So I promise you, if you say amen, I won't talk long as a preacher. And I won't get too excited as a politician. And Joseph had another dream. This familiar text often gives us foundational standing as we talk about the personality, and work of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. However, the perplexing question is, how does a nation in 2018, in a corporate sense, celebrate the life, preaching, and teaching of a man whose very words were despised and rejected by many, not only Caucasians, but African Americans as well? My father would always challenge people when they would say they were part of the civil rights movement. He would say, maybe you were, but were you on the side being hit by rocks, or were you on the side throwing rocks? How do we now in 2018 celebrate by proxy that we still fail to enact by praxis in communities, cities, and states and the nations? Have we as a nation to a great degree reduced the words of Dr. King to poetry? Have we reduced it to the point now where oppressor and the oppressed can now dance by the same song? Have Dr. King's words now become interpreted with such celebration that we make those politically challenged and social transformative words more digestible so we can still do what we do as a culture and yet gather on King's birthday as if it's a kumbaya moment? Yet while gathering, there's still health disparities. There's still an alarming and ever-growing achievement gap. There are still dilapidated communities and still lack of opportunities. In clear language, what has transpired that now the oppressor and the oppressed celebrate the same words without acting and enacting change where what we are talking about actually will have an impact on our communities. Listen again to those words as spoken by Dr. King. He said, I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of his creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, all persons are created equal. Dr. King said, I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood and sisterhood. Dr. King said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Dr. King said, I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. However, the challenge before us today is to remove those words from the bookshelf of poetry and return them as a compelling prophecy. The challenge before us today is to remove those words from a place where we no longer feel the pain. Remove them from a place where we can remain at ease in Zion. The challenge before us today is to remove those words as nice quotes or things to say as politicians and preachers. It is time to remove those words and let them return again to a place where they make us uneasy. My mother, who transitioned to be with the Lord in 1999, when she saw her oncologist in the last stage of breast cancer, the doctor said to my mother, haven't you been feeling bad for a long time? My mother replied, I've been feeling bad for so long that if I had a good day, I would think something was wrong. We cannot live in a nation in which we accept bad times for the poor and the least of these as the norm, even to the fact of where those of us who should be working hard are no longer working hard because we believe that the less of these are actually getting what they deserve. Oh, Dr. King's dream cannot be confined to an event, cannot be confined to a march on Washington, but yet we have to pick the words up from the printed page, dust them off, and in our own context be able to do like Joseph and dream again. When prophetic dreams could no longer cause us to be troubled and called to action, that's the time to go back to the drawing board and to dream again. We can no longer gloss over and just act like bad spots are no longer present just so we can have moments in which we sit around and act like everything is all right. Church hired a painter to come over and paint some rooms in the parsonage. And when the painter came over, the painter asked me, who painted these walls the last time? Well, I don't have a degree in painting, but I'm not bad. He said, well, Normally, we always have to prepare the walls. But this time, we got to do a little extra work. Because instead of covering the hole, you just put more paint in it. So we got to do some digging in some places that might be a little painful. It is in this country, it is in this land that we have been able to cover up some stuff without yet digging deep enough to get at the very core of the matter. And we allow words and things to be said as if those words and things don't make a difference. How in the world can you be against the poor when you yourself live in public housing? It's just a little better house. How can you be down on other people who are struggling when you yourself use public transportation? It's just a little better plane. How can you be down on those that you are put there to help? The only way to do it, we have to dream again. And the only way to dream again is to embrace the original dream, but yet reevaluate the original dream. And when we evaluate the original dream, we have to ask ourselves some questions. And the first question we have to ask ourselves is, do I have anything to offer? The answer is a resounding yes. You have everything to offer. I believe if we had a book in the Baptist tradition about baptism, that baptism ought to be applied. I baptize you in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And while you are under the water, we need to ask you and have you registered. And if we can build a phone that will survive underwater, God knows we can build a voter form that can survive underwater. We have something to offer. We have a mind to think. We have a heart to feel. We have hands to work. And we have a voice to speak. We have to be able to stand up and to speak up for the poor and the marginalized. Don't allow words of injustice to be spoken in your presence and you endorse them with your silence. I'm always troubled as a person when my friends come to me and my friends tell me, said, I was in a conversation the other day and they were talking about you. That's always confusing to me. Because if you are my friend and you are in the conversation and they are talking about me, I don't expect you to come back and tell me you were in the conversation. I expect you to use your phone call and call and ask me, do you have any bail money? Because when they said something about you, I went to heaven off. I went to heaven off at the way they were acting. Oh yes, you have something to offer. We have to get into the place where silence is no longer acceptable. My sister, we call her Big Lily. I would not suggest you called her Big Lily, but we called her Big Lily. But often when she would be in a conversation and people would say something about her friends, my sister would say, you can talk if you want to talk, but I need to let you know that's my friend. And I'll never know when I just might not go off with you talking about my friend. Each one has something to offer because your silence gives consent. We live in a day in which the debate now is if the president used blank house or some other kind of, are you serious? They want to crucify Obama for killing a mosquito. Yes, all of us, we have something to offer. Knowing we have something to offer, we have to ask ourselves that second question, what will it cost? Many times this question becomes the ultimate question of whether one gets involved in the struggle for humanity's liberation. What will it cost me? if I refuse to laugh at a joke about someone's appearance? What will it cost me if I don't go along with my buddies when they make an uncolorful remark about a lady? What will it cost me if I object to the racial remarks that are being said? What will it cost me if I no longer go along just to get along? Because the day is over when someone can say, I was in someone's presence and that person never said anything that was racist. You are a lie. The only reason it did not sound like a racist statement is because the two of you are speaking the same language. And what is racist to one, if you are racist too, it does not sound racist because you are speaking the same language. It might cost you a few invitations. It might cost you not being invited to the Christmas party. It might cost you not being part of the in crowd. And yes, my fellow politicians, it might cost you your next election. But if you are going to make humanity better, it will and it has to cost us something. The cost we pay is an investment to make our neighborhoods, our communities, our towns, and our cities, and our states, and yes, America, a great land. Dr. King was fully aware of the cost that it would cost him in his speech when he said, I've been to the mountaintop. He says, like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and God has allowed me to go to the mountain, and I looked over and I've seen the promised land, and I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. But the cost of getting to the promised land, it takes a ticket at the door, and the ticket comes with the price of sacrifice. And finally, we must ask ourselves, what will the results be if I refuse to do anything? Dr. King, while interpreting the biblical story of the Good Samaritan, said the question to ask is not what would happen to me if I act, but the question is what would happen to the wounded if I don't act. We are bombarded with the evil reality of failing schools and mass incarceration and sexual misconduct and a moral vacuum and troubles that plague us like an ever-approaching storm. But evil that is not stopped continues to grow, and we cannot put up enough boundaries to make it stop. If you allow evil to exist in my neighborhood, it will not be long before it is also in your neighborhood. And when people proclaim nothing like that happens in our neighborhood, yes, it does. You just didn't stop it in my neighborhood. So while it was growing in my neighborhood, it simply grew into your neighborhood. If you don't stop female African-American women from being abused in slavery, it will grow until today when there's sexual abuse. If you don't stop separate but equal when you had the chance, it will still grow today. If we don't stop it, it continues to grow. Yes, we must dream. And we must dream again. Not throw away the original dream, but become even more motivated and more determined to open our mouths, to open our hearts, and speak a dream. We must dream again until churches and synagogues and mosques will not just meet but merge at the table of sisterhood and brotherhood. We must dream again until black, white, brown, and red are colors and not gauges of opportunity, but things that will open the gates to have a better land. We must dream again until the elderly do not have to decide between buying medicine or food because they cannot afford both medicine and food. We must dream again until everyone is seated at humanity's tables, and labels like straight, gay, round, short, tall will not be challenges that would exclude us, but rather that will be invitations that will bring us together. We must dream again until the words of that old Negro spiritual will ring very true. Walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There's a great camp meeting in the promised land. We must dream again until that civil rights marching song becomes a combined anthem from all of humanity to sing, that deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We must dream again until Trump can't tweet enough, can't talk enough, can't hate enough, can't cut enough to stop this world from being all it can be. We must dream again until righteousness rolls like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. We must dream again.